Right, so today we're doing something a bit different. We're going to do a table out of a cable drum, but we're going to do 5 minutes, we're going to do 50 minutes, and we're going to do 5 hours. So the 5 minute one, easy enough. Table, done, easy. So now we'll go for 50 minutes. 50 minutes is going to be a bit more involved. We're going to route around the edges because these are a bit sharp at the minute. And then it will be still the same height, but a nice route finish. So we've got the router down there. We'll get that out in a minute. We'll get it set up on the camera and we'll look at what sort of route we want. Right, so this is our router. These are our router bits. There's loads of little pieces in here that do different things to the wood. We could sort of do like a square, like L shape into the wood. We could do little, like route out little channels in the wood if we need to. That sort of the thing we'd be looking at doing if we were putting LED strip around it. We've got some real deep cuts as well if we wanted to just put a nice big channel around it. We've got square edge if you wanted to just literally clean that up to make it fully square. But I think the one we're going to be going for is this nice rounded edge bit. I don't know if the camera can pick that up. I'll bring it in sort of there. That's a rounded edge bit. This bit spins freely, and that will be the part that we end up rubbing against the solid bit of wood that we want to keep. So we'll set the router up, we'll get that set, and then I'll bring the cable drum up, and we can see how that will line out as it rolls along it. So first things first, got to actually get it in the router. I'll try and get it on the camera as best I can. Basically push that in, and then we want to use the spanner to get it nice and tight. So we can probably use our fingers for the first bit. And the spanner will just keep it nice and tight. There we go, that's in there, can't pull it out. And we'll set the depth in a minute as well. So we'll set the depth to the right depth of the cable drum so we know we're not eating into it too much. We don't want to come right up to this point. This point here will give us a square edge, which is what we don't want. So that is where we want it. So what we'll do is we'll set the guide, tighten it up. That means when we push down, we're not going to push past that point because it hits that guide. Like that. Right, let's bring the cable drum up. Right, to make sure also that we don't start spinning around, we'll grab a clamp and at the back of this bench, we're just going to clamp it in. That'll mean now our drum nice and secure, so when we're routing, we can push against it and really get nice and tight in. So as I was saying before, we've set the guide up, so the router, when it comes down, it's just going to hit on the top there. Right, I'm going to start cutting. First things first, put our safety specs on. Got Nick the cameraman with us today, but he's far away enough that he's not going to get wood chippings in his eyes. Plus, he's got insurance, I'm sure. Right, so just before we move the camera, I just thought I'd talk about this little dip here. So this is obviously where we started and come round. And basically where the router is eating away at the wood, where there's a couple of bits where it was getting snagged on some heavy glue or some knots in the wood and stuff, we've had to take a little bit more away, so we're left with this. So what we're going to do is we'll move the camera and then we'll get the underside of it, and so we can see what's actually being churned away by the router, and then we'll see this dip will disappear and end up being back to being a full circle again, because we took roughly that much off the whole way around to get that nice bullnose rounded edge. So yeah, we'll move the, oh, actually, I just thought as well, we've got a guide. The only problem with the guide is, because it's square, if I was to try and put it on this round edge, there'll be points where it slips down because it's got too much slack between the pipe guide and the bit. So it's more for just square edge stuff. So if we try to do it on a round, it just slips and then we end up going too far into our wood that we won't be able to repair it. I did give it a go, but it just didn't work out. So we'll move the camera, get this set up underneath, and you'll see a bit more of what's actually happening as the router's passing through the wood. Right, so I think what we're going to do is these internal bits, we're going to use the sander on, just because it's going to be real difficult to get the router in there. Even if I flip it upside down, we're going to be still having the same gap issue, and we won't be able to just swing the whole way around because we're going to be obviously resting on the bench. So we'll flip it. We'll do this outside edge on this side, and we'll get the sander and we'll sand both the internal edges at the same time, basically. I think that's going to be the quickest way of doing it. Obviously, the router's all set up already for us. So this time, we're just going to do 1 to 3 quick passes whole way around. And we'll see where it lands. We'll do 1 pass through first, see how that looks, and then go at it a couple more times if we need to. Oh, I don't even see there, but obviously there's a couple of bits nibbing in this area. So there's probably a knot in between some of these ply bits. Because where the ply is like sheets of wood, glue, sheet of wood, glue. There could be a knot anywhere. So basically where this is knotting, obviously the router's trying to clip away at it. So we've got a nice curved edge on there now. So what we're going to do is when we've got the sander out to do the underside, we're just going to run the sander over the top and just soften off that routed edge, purely because the router's getting snagged and then it's kind of ruining the wood on either side of it. So it's one of those things that if you ever experience it, take a step back, maybe use a different tool. You can see where it's starting to chip away at it little bits. So these frayed little bits coming up. So step back, get a sander. You get way more control with a sander, and you can use like different grits and stuff to really softly get in. So that'll be what we're looking at next. Right, so we've got our sander out. This is 180 grit sandpaper, and we're basically going to use that to get this underside all nice and clean and tidy. So the reason why I went Metabo is just purely because my dust extractor's Metabo. Dust extractor's lasted ages, comes with my chaser. So I was just like, might as well keep them all relatively the same. One thing you'll notice as well so this is a sort of DIY router by Trend. The difference in the sort of professional and the non-professional stuff, the cable lead is just so short on this router that I've had to put an extension lead in to actually do the routing on this. Whereas the sander has like a 3.5 to 5 meter cable on it. So it's plenty long enough to get in where we need to get into, get round and bits and bobs. Obviously, it's got the air gaps in there as well. So that is how the dust extractor can suck all that sawdust out as we're sanding round. And what we're going to do when it do come to sanding, we're just going to do little rotations with the sander. This is an random orbital sander. So we're just going to do little rotations like that so it doesn't bite into the wood too much. And we're going to kind of angle it in such a way that we're going to try to I don't know, try to sort of get it this rounded edge like the router did, but we've got way more control with the sander. So we could really, you know, rough it in, get a nice angle, go nice and slow with it. We should get a nice soft finish then on the internals of this drum. So what we'll do is we'll get this camera set up a bit more zoomed in, and so you can see exactly what I'm doing as I'm actually sanding it down. It'll kind of make more sense rather than me just talking about it. Right, so that's our 50-minute section done. We've got all our edges nice and soft and smooth. Tops all nice and soft and smooth. Insides nice and soft and smooth. Bottom all perfect. Next part, we're going to go into the 5-hour section. So this is where it gets a bit more exciting. First thing we're going to do is set up to get our legs on. We're going to use the galvanized conduit again, just because it's nice, solid, and we can cut it and thread it here nice and easy. How our legs are going to be set up is something akin to this. So we're going to want each bit of pipe the exact same length. So we've got a nice square setting for our legs to come up. That'll keep us nice and level. So if you imagine, we're basically going to do something like that, but spread out over the same distance between. This part here is going to be our cable entry, because what we're going to do is we're going to have the cable go in, go drill a hole through this one, get into our little section down here, so we can hide all our cables in the main bulk of this sort of insert here. Then our lights, we're going to have one light here, which will light the underside of the unit, and then we're going to have a bigger light on the other side that will light upwards. So we get a real nice, fancy looking spin on a cable drum table. So that's got to be our bit. So what we'll do now is we'll just have a little measure up of what we are aiming for. Looks about like 150 to 200, but we'll double check it. And then we'll make sure that all pipes are the same. So we are 180 there. So we're now going to cut 4 lengths, 180 threaded both sides. Get that in and then screw it to this base. That'll be our first part. So we'll get this bench out of the way, we'll get the bender back out, and we'll go through the cutting of the metalwork. Right, so we've got the bender set up. This is our 20mm galv conduit. This is what we're going to use for our legs. It's also got what we're going to use for the framework as well going in. As you see on here, this is a cut down length from a 3-meter length. This is the machined edge. So this is the machined threading. So that should be a nice perfect thread on that. So we can use that bit. We're going to cut here, and then we're going to have to thread and thread. So we've got enough to screw in on each side. What we'll do, we use the hand grinder to cut a nice straight line, and then we'll thread it back. So what I'll do first is I'll cut, then we'll go through the threading. So we'll cut it now. Specs on, super safety. Nick behind the camera, he's just going to squint at us for a bit. So what we're doing there is, as we're cutting through, we don't want this part to snap off. So we just take the weight of it while we're cutting through to let that grinder just do that nice clean cut. Then after it's cut, we just put the grinder on nice and flat, and then that gives us a nice flat edge on that bit, we then just do a slight angle on it, and that just deburrs that bit around the side. So when we come to do the thread, we get a nice, quick, easy bite from the threading tool as it goes in. So as it goes in there, it won't sort of come up at an angle or something like that, because if our thread is angled, when we then screw it into whatever we're screwing it into, it won't sit nice and straight like that one. It'll kick up, or it'll kick down, or it'll kick into any other direction which we don't want, which will get rid of our square when we're setting out on that table. So that's what we're going to go with. This stuff, Tamaxol, it's just what you use as a cutting compound. It just helps everything bite nicer, helps prolong the life of your threader as well, so the teeth in there don't get destroyed by the metalwork if you're just going dry. So what we'll do now, just put a tiny bit on there. Put the threader on. So this blue bit here, that's the guide. Guide goes on first, gets us into the point. We just push lightly as we do our first turn. As soon as you know it's bit, it will hold itself there. Then you go around a few more times. So you just about hear it as it bites. As soon as it gets a bit tough, we've got to drop pack by about a quarter, let it clear, and then roll it back in. We're looking for a 20mm thread, roughly, because that's what our fittings have inside them. And it just means we get a really nice, tight fit in those boxes that we saw earlier. Make sure that's tight. Obviously, I've been doing this for a little while, so I can roughly know where 20mm is, because you obviously can't see anything when you've got this blue thing on. You can't actually see in to measure where your thread's got to. There we go. So unscrew that off there. Give it a nice clean. So you can see there, we've kind of matched that machine thread pretty perfectly. Hold it nice and tight. Threads to the same distance. Now we'll get a bit of gal spray on it. I think eventually we're going to spray all this metalwork black, so we can kind of overspray the gal spray. We won't have to rub off the residue too much, because we're going to go over the whole lot with black. So this gal spray, what that will do is just stop any rust getting into that thread. Because over time, if you don't sort of gal spray it, you will get the rust come up. Even if you are doing it indoors, it will come up. The moisture will come up from anywhere. Whether you've got carpet, hard floors, doesn't matter. It'll find its way in, as moisture always does. So now we'll just open it up a little bit more. Measure again 180. We'll cut that one off. Same again, so we've got one threaded end, one cut end. We've deburred it, flattened it off nice. Now we've got two looking basically the same. So we're going to go another 2 rounds of that. We're going to end up with 4 of these, but then obviously we're going to have to put a thread on this side on all 4 of them. But while we've got the pipe in the thing, it's a lot easier to just cut, thread, and then we'll just drop back and thread all 4 separately. As you might have noticed as well, we've got a little bit of scratching because of the clamp. So we won't use this bit on any of the table legs, because you can see it obviously. So even if we spray that black, it will still sort of have those little nips on it. So what we'll do is we make sure we use this on the underside of the table, where it's not really going to be seen, doesn't hurt any of the metalwork or anything. So keep going with it. Do another 180. Right, so we've got our bits of pipe cut that are going to go in between each one of our main structures. So this is where the fun bit is. So these are our accessories we're going to be using. These are the bits that are going to go in between each point, and you can kind of see it already, but we're going to get to an issue when we get to the last one. So let's thread these in now. Now we're not too worried about the thread if it is on show or anything like that. We're going to use the fact that we've got extra thread to basically make sure that everything stays as a direct 90-degree. So obviously, if we thread this one in, it may be that it ends here when it's tight. So we're all right to just drop it back a touch because all this is going to be the underside of the table. Yeah, so like we're tight there, so we can't see the thread, but obviously our box is the wrong way. So we're just going to bring it back a touch. And now we've got a little bit of thread showing on each side, but we're not going to see it at the bottom, so we're all right. So that'll be our first table leg here, second table leg here. I'm going to keep going round. So again, get it nice and tight. Next right angle. Same again, we've got a bit of a thread showing at the top, but you can kind of see it start come to shape. Now you probably noticed I'm spinning this big bit rather than spinning the pipe. That's because if we try to just spin the pipe into here, it would loosen off from that side. So when you've got that fully tight, that side's fully loose. And then we'd lose our 90-degree the whole way around. So we want to be roughly the same the whole way around. So we know we've got a nice square. But the issue we've got now is how are we going to screw that into there? Because obviously if we screw one side like this, we now won't be able to get that in there to screw in. So we've got like a weak point. So this is where we come up with a different way of threading the pipe work. So this is the thread on the pipes that we've done so far, whole way around, just 20mm thread on each side. I'll bring it a little bit closer to the camera maybe, but bit of thread on each side, 20mm both sides. Right, so that's our pipe that matches the rest of the pipe. So it's just a normal bit with 20mm thread on each side. Obviously, that bit we already worked out, we can't get that to work. So what we have to do is do something a little bit different where we're going to thread this bit the whole way up to here so we can get what's called a coupler to thread onto it. And then we'll tighten that right up, put it in line where we want it to go with. And then as we unloosen it, we'll have this bit in this. So if I take it apart individually for you, just so it makes a bit more sense, I'll leave that one there because that's the original one. This bit here is called a nipple. It's just a threaded bit of 20mm galv, goes up to point to point. And this bit here is called a coupler. So as you see, as I'm screwing this off, we've got it threaded so much more than the other side. So the other side's 20mm. This is probably a bit more like 35 to 40mm. This bit here is called a lock ring. And then that's what's going to hold our coupler in place when we tighten down on it. So as you can see that thread there, that thread is the same length as our coupler. Done that without measuring as well because we're doing it so long, obviously. It's got it perfect. But we'll put the lock ring back on, we'll put the coupler back on. I'll show you the nipple will have to go in the other side where we're finishing. So grab nipple goes in nice and tight on this side. What we're aiming for is we want a good bit of thread to still be hanging out. So our coupler's got something to thread onto. So obviously, if we didn't have that nipple in, coupler's got nothing to thread onto. What we'll do is we'll tighten down on this one. Hands are covered in cutting compound. I'll use some grips. A little bit of help. Right, now we've got that one matching the others. It's got about one bit of thread showing. And as you can see, there's a bit of a distance between our coupler and our nipple. So now what we do is we undo the coupler. As we undo the coupler will bite onto that nipple. Now, if everything's square, this will line up nice and perfect. And then we'll tighten that lock ring down as it gets tight. There's a fluff. Oh, well done with it. Oh, Meg's got it. Lovely. It's been sniffing it. Very fiddly, but as soon as we get it to actually bite, we can then tighten it up. So as I was saying, undo this coupler. And as you can see, we're undoing it from this side, we're screwing it onto this side. But in this coupler, we've still got all that thread. Still got another, so we've got 20mm thread there, we've still got another 20mm, maybe more of thread going down there. So then we've got it in a nice tight spot like that. That's when your lock ring comes in. Again, we're almost undoing it, but in undoing it, we're tightening it against that coupler that can't go anywhere. There you go. And that's locked us in place. So now we've got all 4 pipes in. Now we just got to measure off the bits, and then we can fix this down, and that's our framework for our legs. Right, so from this position, we're basically just going to make sure we get our little pilot holes in here, so then we can screw into the wood below. We're going to have to use tiny little screws because we've obviously only got about 12mm of thickness on this bit of wood, so we're not going to be able to go too mad with it. But I've put a couple of little screws just in these two so we don't lose our positioning, because we're going to pop this off, turn it round, do the pilots through, and then put it back into position. So I'll just do it now. You'll just see there that that was my little reference point. Just drill, we just want a couple in each one really. Right, so that first drill bit, that's just a tiny little 2mm, just to get our positioning right. Now this one will just go up to a 4mm, and that's just about big enough that our screw can fit through the hole and still bite into the wood below. Lovely job. Right, so that's all our pilots done. Give that a shake in the bin. Stick that down there for a second. Stuff everywhere ready. Right, I'll put that off. This is why I kept my little reference points. So we've got that point and that point. That'll line up to our screws here. Just drop in. there. That one in there. Perfect. So now we're back to full square. Put the screws through. Right, so these are the screws we're using. They're about 1/4 of an inch. So plenty enough to get a bite in there and hold this bit in place for us. So I'll screw that in now. Just that way. Now we're all screwed in, so we're all nice and tight in there. Happy days. Now we've got to find a route to get our cable in. But I think we'll open this hole out first and get our hand under there and just make sure that this, where we want to put our cable through, is actually hidden in the main base of the drum. So to open this hole out, I haven't got any holes saws this size. This is a 60mm hole. Closest I've got 64. As you can see, it's just a bit tight. So we'll just open these holes out on both sides, because this is where our light's going to go. Brand new drill and a chuck on. Right, that's that side opened out. Same on this side. Right, and going forward, this bit on here is actually got to be our pilot bit, because we want to make this hole quite a bit bigger to fit our light in. So for that to work out, we have to use this bit as our pilot, and this is basically called like an oops bit, as far as I know. It's probably got a proper name, but that's the one I'm going with. And that literally screws onto here. You don't actually make the hole with this drill bit, this is the guide. So that sits in there, and then that stops your drill bit from flapping about when you're doing your bigger hole. So in this case, we've got to go up to a 5-inch hole, I think, by the sounds of it. Looks of the light we've got going in. So that was our original pilot bit. This is now our new pilot bit. So this is our 150mm hole saw, which is for our light that's going in at the top. So I put it in there, lock it in place. And then our pilot bit goes in the center, lining up with the screw. Try and do it that way for you so you can see. Right, pilot's in, that's the actual hole saw we need. So as you see, when we go down, can't quite get it to show you, but basically this bit can't move anywhere. So as we're doing the big hole, it shouldn't go all over the place. Right, now to be fair, that is quite a lot of work that you're asking for the drill to do, but we got there. Might take our pilot bit out. It's going to be hot, I reckon. Right, That's that bit done with. Now same again, but we've got a smaller light at the bottom, so you've got a smaller hole, but still the same pilot hole. Right, see it a bit better with the smaller. That clamps on there, look. Just so you see why we've done the hole size we have. This is your light. That's obviously going to clip into there. Bit annoying that the manufacturer hole thing's just there, but it is what it is. So that is the finished top side. Obviously we've got to clean it out, but that's the finished top side of our table. So our bottom side where we done that hole last time, that's obviously where we done our smaller hole. So we're going to do that, open it out a bit bigger, similar to this one. Take that out for a minute just because it's resting on that wood. We don't want that light getting scratched and stuff. That's like the finished bit. So right, so same again, that's your pilot. That'll sit in. Nice. And that's our hole size for our slightly smaller light. Let's go at the bottom. So now we've got that cut out, we can kind of have a little feel around and see if we can get to a point where any of our boxes, that one's pretty close. Just got a massive splinter. There you go. Right. That one, I think it's pretty close. So we're going to have to drill at an angle. Because I thought the base was quite a bit wider out, but it's obviously not. So we're going to have to do a bit of an angle on one of these bits. We've just got to try and, I think this is our winner, this one. So we're going to try and drill at a little angle with a metal drill bit. Like I said before, start with a nice small one. At least if we start with a small one and we're not in the right bit, we can reassess. Oh, that's pretty perfect, that angle. Right, so we know that one's got us. So then we open it up 2 to 4, then we'll go 4 to 8. Keep that same angle every time. And we know we're going to be inside where we want to be. Right, one more open. Nice. So just got to get through there. So this is our cable, our Stuffing gland comes in here. We go literally straight through there, straight down and into our mains bit there, which we're going to do all the cabling in. We've just got to put a stuffing gland in there. Could put it in afterwards, but it's easier to do it now. Stuffing gland, just literally, it's a 20mm thread, 20mm hull. That'll go into there. And all that does is just stop the cable from being yanked out or moved around in any way. Right, yep, it's all tight. Lovely job. Feed that through there. Give ourselves plenty because we want to be in there and working on it. Don't want to give ourselves such a small amount of cable that makes it more difficult for us going forward. Lovely. Right, that go in there. Any of the wood and stuff, so there we go. Lovely. We'll leave a tiny bit in there just for as and when we need it. If we strip it off. Right, so that will be our incoming power cable. So that's live in, neutral in, earth in. This will be live out, neutral out, earth out, and then that will go to our next light. So we've got the two drivers here that are all going to disappear into that box. So this smaller light is basically going to be what we're calling our end of line, meaning it's the last light on the circuit. This one, our bigger one, that's got to be our first light on the circuit. So they are identical inside, they're just probably going to be different wattages because they're different size lights. So different drivers, different size lights. This one we're going to have to pop in there underneath and then feed it up. Or actually, should we make that the end of the line? Oh, we'll make that one the end of the line because then we can do it from the other side. We'll make this one the first one. JCC is a real cheap make, so they're real annoying with the cable entries and stuff. Everything's so plasticky and Chinesey. Oh, so terrible. So these connections are literally like push fit, but like the cheapest version of push fit. So I think what we're going to do is actually use Wagos and then come out the Wagos into each driver. I think it's generally just going to be a bit safer, especially because we've got all that space inside the unit that we can actually use. And then because these are what's called double insulated drivers, they don't have an earth terminal to them, so they literally just have live, neutral, that's it. So our earth will just float about in there, so we've still got an earth in the cable itself. but it will just go to like a connector block basically. Very annoying, but there's a reason why they're so cheap. Right, so these are Wagos, these are what I've used before, you might recognise them. Cable goes in, closes down on it. It's classed as a mechanical joint as well, so it means you haven't got to get to them to retighten them up anytime soon. Should be a case of literally laying them in there, clamping it down, can't come undone, put the rest in. Right, there we go. There's your Wagos, they're all in there, nice and tight. I ran out of 3-ways, so I've got a 5-way. Then we'll strip this real short, because again, it doesn't give you any space for cable. No space for a connector block in there, no space for nothing. Good old JCC. Right, there you go, that's in there nice and tight. Obviously there's nowhere for the earth to go, nowhere to fit a cable tie in there or anything like that, so we're just going to put the earth in there floating, just so we've got the earth actually in that cable that goes the whole way down. We could cut it out the other side, but then you'll have no earth actually in the cable run. It's the annoying thing when they say, oh, it's double insulated, they just do it to save a connector block spot. But if you're making thousands and thousands of lights and you save one connector block, you're saving 1 penny on 1,000 lights, aren't you? Money, money, money. Right, so screwing this down, that holds the cable in place as well as like a cable gripper in there. So the rest of this we're just going to fold back in there. This one will obviously be attached to our other light when we flip this base round. So fold that in. Watch the mousetrap things, springs. Get that going. Right, so now we've got these bits. So these are just going to be the dome heads. Dome heads go on there, and then our legs are obviously going to go into there, and then that'll be our actual tape. So let's get that in. Get these nice and tight. Right, lovely. So that's our dome heads on. Now we've got to do screw legs in. Now that's a nice simple one. These will screw in, and then depending on what the ground is, obviously if the ground isn't perfectly level, if you've got tiles or carpet or something, we can then unscrew each leg to where we need to. But for now we're just going to screw them all in nice and tight so you don't see any thread. Put the dome caps on the other side. That'll be our full on legs. I haven't got a big level in here, but I've got a little one that'll do the job just for leveling up in here. Lovely. Legs, so then we've just got to put the dome caps on this side. Good to go. Right, so these are our top end dome caps. These are going to go on here. And then I also, because I'm not entirely sure what sort of floor type this is going on. Obviously if it's carpet we could just leave it as it is, but as we're not 100% sure, I just sell it normally with something like them on them. So then you can take that off, stick it on, and it gives you a little bit of a felt foot thing. So if you're putting it on tiles or maybe wood floor or something, just something to, you know, protect it a little bit, because metal on tile, probably not the greatest thing. But yeah, it's just a nice little bit of felt. The other things I've seen are actually the cups that sort of go over it, and it makes it more slidable. I was thinking at one point of like trying to paint all this black, spray it all black with that spray paint that we used for the Stag logo, but definitely not going to have time. We're running real tight against it at the minute. It's all this threading of this metalwork that's very time consuming, because with every cut you've got to do 2 threads. I have in the past used that con lock stuff, so that means you don't have to thread it, you just poke the pipe in and then just clamp down on it with a grub screw, but it slops about quite a bit. It's not like a real tight fix. So that's that. So if we flip it the other way, so you can see where we're coming with it. Got to do a little bit of adjustment on the legs and stuff, but our cables that we put up here before, that's going to be our one for our driver. So again, got to cut it really short because they give you no space for cable in them JCC things. Pull that off. I need to get a nice flat surface for this to sit on so I can level it off. No point leveling it off if I'm on wonky floor. Same thing again, not really a lot of space in there, but that's just push fit down, live neutral, earth sits behind, cable gripper, go on the top. Screw down, that will hold the cable in place for us. Oh, it's so annoying about that little bit, but here's what it is. If we move this circle over to this side to try and get rid of that gap, then it wouldn't be centre, so it'd look weird in a different way. Right, plugged up again. I've probably left about 2 meters on this cable, so it should be plenty. I used to actually have on like Etsy or whatever, I used to have like people say what length of cable they wanted, just because it made it a bit easier. Because there's no point in selling everyone 3 meter lengths or 5 meter lengths if they don't actually need it. Right, in terms of this cable, same again with the plug. Strip the first one, cut it at the length that you stripped it at. Strip another 5mm off. Cut the brown where you strip the blue. I'll try and hold it like that. Cut another 5mm off. Give them a little twist because you can't fit ferrules in a plug top, and then that should be your staggered bit. So your earth will go in first, then your live, then your neutral, because it's got a bit of a loop on it. I'll try and show you again. Again, I forgot to bring in a 3 amp fuse. So annoying. I should just keep some in here, shouldn't I? Oh well. But I've said before, and I say again, if ever you're doing anything like this, if you're doing lighting, make sure you only use a 3 to 5 amp fuse, depending on what light bulbs you're using. Don't use a 13 amp fuse, it's well too big for the cable that you're using. You'll probably be using 0.75 flex, which I think is only rated to about 5 to 6 amp, even on a short distance. Because sometimes you get away with using a lower rated cable if you're only using it over a meter. But in general, lighting 3 amp, you'll be fine. Especially if you're using new like LED stuff. I mean, most of this stuff doesn't even use an amp, like not even close to an amp. Alright, push that in. Lovely job. Right, so same again, like our plug. Neutral, live, earth. Again, try not to have any of the copper showing outside the brass, just to keep it nice and neat and tidy. Obviously I'm going to have to take this all apart again in a minute anyway, just put a 3 amp fuse on it, but for now while I'm in here, we'll just clamp that up. And then I've got my extension lead somewhere. I was down here from a router with a tiny lead on it. Right, anyway, there you go. All lit up. God, it's bright at the top there. But yeah, you can kind of see, so we've got the light at the bottom, light at the top, and then put some bits on there. I'll try and zhuzh it up a bit, make it look a bit neater. Get it nice clean. Lovely job. Not bad going from what was a cable drum. So yeah, catch us soon on the next one. I don't know what we're going to do next, but it'll be something probably using gal conduit again, because it keeps coming out. It's a bit different. I'm going to try and take a photo of this with something on top of this, maybe like a chessboard or something. Could look quite nice, because then the chessboard lights upwards. But yeah, so this one's done. This one's either going to be, I don't know if I'm going to keep this one or if we're going to give it away, but we'll find out soon. I have got another drum as well, so I could do a different version of a table. But yeah, we'll come up to it soon. Right, thanks for watching anyway, guys. I'll catch you soon.